my career, it was not difficult to become Secretary of State for European Affairs because I had a long experience as working for the European Commission in Brussels. So it means that I know very well the European politics, the European affairs, the European institutions. So it was, if you say, normal to become Secretary of State for European affairs. But normally you need to be invited. It's not because we decided to be member of the government. I was invited by the Prime Minister to become a member of the government, and I had been elected member of the parliament also. The main issue is to have, to achieve more participation of women in public life. When I say public life, I say political life. For example, have more women working for government, more women members of the government, more women members of the parliament, more women elected at local level, for example, as mayors. This is on political life, concerning political life, but also on enterprises, because we have a lot of women working for enterprises, but they are not members of the boards. They are not CEOs, for example. What is important in Portugal concerning participation of women in public life is because the government in 1995, Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the United Nations, as Prime Minister at the time, he adopted a law, and nowadays it's compulsory to have 30% of women in the lists for national parliament and in different areas. And also, nowadays we are discussing a law in the parliament trying to impose a quota of 30% of participation of women in the boards of the enterprises. So it means that the Portuguese government decided to adopt a law on quotas, imposed 30% of quotas of participation of men or women. It means I know that there are not a consensus on quotas, but for us it was a good thing. It means that nowadays we improved a lot concerning the participation of women, and this improvement is due to this law, quotas law. They adopted a long time ago this approach, this quota approach. And they nowadays they have a balanced participation of women and men in the society and in the political life. So it's why I say that it's a first step, because as you know, in the society, there are more women than men in the society, but not in the decision jobs, in the decision makers jobs like governments, parliaments, local actors, enterprises. It's not. So we need to do something, to impose something, because if we wait for a normal way to improve the participation of women, we don't have it. We need to have concrete measures and to impose concrete measures. Being a woman, you know, I was in 1981. It means almost 40 years ago. I was elected Secretary General of a political youth organization. I was the first woman elected as Secretary General of a political organization in my country. So I have a long career as a woman. So nowadays it's not a problem for me. But as a political woman, I can't think only about me, but about the participation and how to improve the participation of women in political life. So to answer to your question, my answer is no, I don't feel that I have problems, but as a woman, but I know that a lot of women, they have problems to participate in the political life. With quotas, it means, for example, we have 30%, other countries have the same approach, 30%, 40%, 20%. Maybe it's always the first step because we know when we are in a group, if, if the women are a minority, the decision, women have not the capacity to influence the decision. But if you have a majority of women, we can impose and you have more power and we can act to improve the participation of women. It was more or less what I did during my presentation. I can give you my text because it's 5 pages explaining my life. But, I was born in a dictatorship country, a country with a dictator, Portugal, until 1974. In 1974, we had a revolution. We say a carnation revolution. Why? Because it was a very, how can I say, a very calm situation. Because we moved since a dictatorship system to a democratic system with the revolution, with the army, but without blood. So we could do it. And we had a transition since a dictatorship system to a democratic system. We had elections. We elected a democratic parliament. We adopted a democratic constitution. I'm speaking about 1974. We were in 1974. I was 20 at the moment. I was at university. I was very committed in this democratization of the political situation in Portugal. So we had no political organization in Portugal at the moment. And we needed to create political organizations from different political families. And I was engaged to create a socialist youth organization. I was a founder of this organization. I was at university, I was a founder of this political organization. I was elected Secretary General of the organization later on in 1981. So it means as, I don't know, but among 30 founders, we were 2 women. So we needed to work a lot to be respected, but it was in a very, we were trying to build a democratic society. And the participation of the women was, we wanted, was accepted. And I developed my career, first of all, as member of the parliament. And in a moment, I was not elected. I was 38, and I decided I stopped my political career, and I start definitively a professional career. And it was what I did it. As I told to you, I was 28. I had a daughter, 13, a son, 8 years old. So I moved from Lisbon to Brussels, to Belgium, to become a public official to the European Commission in Brussels. Because my country, Portugal, had acceded to the European Union. Portugal became a member state of the European Union. And I started working in Brussels. In Brussels, we had at the moment a different approach. There were a lot of women working in the house and so on. And the head, the president of the European Commission, the different presidents of the European Commission, one after the other, they were very committed to have more women in the management jobs. And so but there were more participation, more women participation, but we need always to have targets. And I worked for the European Commission for 25 years, 22 years, and after the Prime Minister invited me to become Secretary of State for European Affairs. Why? Because I was aware on European affairs. I know very well the institutions, the European institutions. I have a lot of networks inside the European institutions. So maybe I was in a good place to become a Secretary of State for European Affairs. And Prime Minister know me very well, and he invited me to become Secretary of State. And now, as Secretary of State, I forgot that I'm a woman. No, I know that we need to be always very attentive with concrete targets concerning participation of women in political life. So it's my commitment, it's my goals. So when I'm thinking about an European politics or how the European politics can influence our national politics, our national law, I'm always thinking how women can participate and also try to identify if these politics improve gender balance. And this is the main issue that we need to have all the time. In all the politics concerning environment, to conciliate public life, political life with family life, we need always to be very attentive to improve gender balance. And we need to be very attentive to avoid that when we adopt a politic in research, in higher education, in labor law, we need to be very attentive to avoid that the application of that law, if the application of that law can create new differentiation between women and men. Oh, okay. My father died 5 years ago, but my father was also very committed in public life in my small city. Last Saturday, I participate in a big dinner to launch the candidature of my party, of a man, his candidature to be elected as candidate mayor of my small city. And he invited me to be the representative of his candidature. And I attended a dinner, big dinner, in a cultural cycle. And I was very happy because when we started the speech, the president of the cultural cycle said, I'm very happy because you are here, because your father was the founder of this cultural cycle. So my father was always very committed, very engaged in the public and political life, never in a political party. He was elected for the mayor, not mayor, but como é que se diz vereador? At the municipal level. He was elected at municipal level. If I want to answer, nowadays sometimes I think that my father influenced me more than my mother. But I can say to you that I have a sister and older than me. And when I was born, my father had preferred a boy. So because one girl and one boy, but he had two girls. But when I was born, during all the life, my father discussed with me all the his business, the things concerning his business, his life. He discussed with me more than with my sister. Maybe it's why he influenced me more than my mother. I think so. Maybe I had never think about it before your question, but in the end of the day, I think that my father influenced me more than my mother. When I was yet at university, because I was at the science university, in science faculty in the University of Lisbon, and at the time, the movement, the organizations of students were forbidden, but you did it. We tried always to do it. And at the time, I'm speaking about beginning of 70s, last century, we had already a sensibility for the participation of women, of our colleagues at the university, at students' organization. So I think that maybe later on I had it was more clear how to work to empower more women. But I think that I thought about it since the beginning of 90s when I was 18 years old or 20 years old, more or less. I visited a tourist 10 years ago here in New Delhi, and 3 years ago I visited Goa, Damau, and Diu. Because when I commemorate my 60th anniversary, my friends, a big group of friends, they offered to me a visit, a tourist visit, a trip. And I decided to come to India. It's very difficult because we have my husband, he's a member of the parliament, elected 2 years ago. But before, he used to be a researcher at university. So we have we have common interests, and we made a lot of trips. We have cultural interest, books, and so on. And so it's why we like very much to live together. And when I lived in Brussels, my husband lived part of the time in Lisbon and another part in Brussels. So we said sometimes that our common life was in a geometric movement, because we lived part of the family in Lisbon, part of the family in Brussels, so we could live together with my daughter and my son in a very good way, either living in different cities.